the first question I have is there even a Terry? Is Terry a real person?
Don't know. I will tell you, I don't know if Terry's a real person, and I don't know if this was a plant in the location also. But there was a guy in there that I will remember for the rest of my life. Okay. He was jacked. He was probably in like his 50s, and he had the receding kind of ponytail a little bit. He looked so Venice Beach, like muscle, and he had a tank top on, the string tank top, and it said "Body by String." Yeah, like the old school, like gold, like, you know what I'm talking about? Venice Beach, like those old muscle tanks where you're like, how did these guys get that string so tiny that it doesn't? He's in there in Terry Black's lunchtime, people all around it, and then on the tank top says "Body by Beef Ribs." And he has a tray in front of him with nothing but these brontosaurus-sized giant beef ribs. I bought one of them. It had to be like 2 pounds. It was like $35, Sean. This guy has about 7 of them sitting in front of him.
All right. That's freaking amazing.
And he's going to town on them. And I will never forget this guy for as long as I live. And I have a regret to not saying hello to him and finding out what his story is. I want to go back. I feel like he's there every day.
Well, one, he's a potential customer. Like, that's a client right there. Like, you gotta shake this guy up a little bit. Like, look, you're either living your best life or, we got to know more about this. Like, there's a full interview in
Inquiring
there.
minds definitely want to know. He's maximizing some aspect of middle age. I wasn't quite sure which side it was, but
it might be the side that tapped into being an 80s child. I mean,
the man knows who he is. At least I think he does. Like that is some kind of security right there.
Well, I'm curious about all this. So backstory on Terry Black's Barbecue for me. In 2018, when we had just launched the Bubs brand, a really good friend of the brand and an old friend of mine named Danielle Gordon was working for a trade show called Paleo FX. And it was kind of like this networking group of like cutting edge nutrition biohackers. And she said, Sean, I just moved to Austin, Texas, and I'm working for Paleo FX. You need to bring the brand here. I'll get you a screaming deal on a booth. Come on back and launch the brand at the Palmer Event Center in downtown Austin, Texas. And I knew about Austin, Texas from my years when I was working with Converse shoes because I used to go there for South by Southwest. And we put on a bunch of events on East 6th Avenue, and it was always a blast. But I never really got to know the city. So we drive out there. Sorry, we fly out there. We've got, the most makeshift setup to like get us going and launch the brand in there. And we get done with setting up the booth and we're just exhausted. And we just walk out of Palmer Event Center and we're like, we got to get some food. And there it is, like Terry Black's. It was like calling to us. So we roll over there, TJ and myself, and we start ordering food. We've never been to a Texas barbecue spot ever. We don't know anything about this. So I'm like, I don't know, what seems like a good idea? Like beef ribs. Well, how many ribs? I don't know, 2 or 3? Not realizing that each rib is about 1 pound. So we ordered like so much goddamn food that we end up having to take it home, and it fed us. We were there for 3 nights. It fed us all 3 nights, the same initial order that we put in because we overshot it. But ever since then, Terry Black's has been this kind of legendary presence in the Bubs history.
It's good, man. And you can live in Texas for 20 plus years like me and still make the over order mistake because we absolutely did it. We were there and it became brisket and eggs the next morning, sausage and eggs the next morning. It's a carryover.
Oh,
no
all
doubt.
The good things. Throw an egg over the top of it. It's fine. That's like a classic Thomas DeLauer. He's like, well, I'm eating all this nutritious food and I'm going to throw an egg on top. Actually, I'm going to throw 3 eggs on top of it. I'm like, that's good protein, man. That makes sense. All right.
It is.
I'm going to take a pause here, and I'm going to give the official introduction to the Cult of Recreationalism podcast, but I just wanted to make sure that Nathan grabbed that snippet on Terry Black's just because it's Terry Black's.
Absolutely.
All right. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cult of Recreationalism podcast. I'm your host, Sean Lake, and today on the show, we've got Greg Scheinman. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, good morning, Sean. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Dude, great to see you as always. A few notes about Greg, folks. Greg is a husband and a father. He is the creator of the Midlife Male newsletter and an author of the Midlife Male, which is a no bullshit guide to living better, longer, happier, healthier, and wealthier, and having more fun in your 40s and 50s, which, by the way, caveat, also includes having more sex. And what guy does not want that? So if that doesn't pique your attention right now, go flush your head in a toilet and come back to us, because that's about the most important thing we could possibly talk about. Greg is an entrepreneur. He's an investor and advisor. He is an athlete, yet we have yet to go head to head in athletic stuff. But I know that we would both beat the living tar out of each other trying to prove the fitness stuff when you're in your 50s. Coach, fitness enthusiastic, and so much more. And right now, though, Greg is a guest on the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh man, thank you for the intro. You know, we went with the longest book title we could possibly come up with right there. So just to mess with that Amazon algorithm.
It's the small print. It's the small print. I'm thinking you're going to trend for sex. That's it. Like, no guy heard anything. No one cared about the wealth, health maybe, but then they heard about having more sex and they're like, wait, hold on. What chapter is that?
I don't know. It might be a perfect segue. I just spent the last 2 hours writing about with my wife in menopause and what that does to your sex life in your 50s when I'm speeding up and my testosterone is high and we're going and she's like, I guess I can start here, why not? And she's 54 going through menopause, and the shit hit the fan in Austin this weekend when
because you're walking around like, you're hot, I love you, you're hot.
It was both, man. I'll tell you, we're walking the lake in the morning, okay, and I hope guys can relate to this. And this is how my crazy mind works. We're out there walking the dogs along the lake in the morning, and it's this beautiful cinematic Austin morning. The sun is shining. I'm walking the dogs. My wife is about 5 feet ahead of me because our young dog walks faster than the old dog, and I'm kind of looking at her ass, and she's walking, and it's a nice view.
Yeah.
And about 5 feet in front of my wife, though, is, respectfully, I can say, another hot blonde. Okay, but there's probably late 20s, blonde hair, and she's all aloed out, in the outfit and everything. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is a great morning. This is a best of both worlds morning. I'm appreciative of my wife. The view is good, but take a look at it. I'm admiring the scenery, if you will.
Yeah.
But what I did was I made the mistake, Sean, of snapping a photo of that and then posting the photo with the caption of remind me again why I love Austin. It's and every guy got it.
It's all in the cropping. It's all in the crop. You could have cropped the photo a certain way, and her shoulder blocks the thing in front, and it just hey.
Needless to say, there was a conversation back at the apartment later about that. So that's where we are.
It's funny because when you started that entire sentence with, talking about sex, I just spent the last 2 hours, and I was about to be like, my man.
Hey, that's not how midlife works. Okay, let's cut to the no bullshit part of the title. That's not, at least in my experience, how midlife works.
Musket fire, musket fire. Big impact, takes a while to reload. Just saying.
Marathon game, not a sprint, right?
It's a marathon game. That's funny. And yeah, I mean, that's real life. And what she's going through is something that's going to have a lot of ups, downs, lefts, rights. And, being in tune with that and being able to navigate that and be an awesome supportive partner is key. That's key. And there's books to read and all that, but I mean, until you're in the trenches and you're in it, that can help you kind of frame it. But it's kind of like the old Mike Tyson, everyone's got a great plan until you get punched in the face.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we'll get into. That's what this is all about. It really is about, learning, embracing curiosity, valuing relationships, kind of growing together, rekindling certain things, what energizes you, what drains you, all of these things as we turn the corner on the next phase. Hang on for one second. That's also, by the way, that's also real life. That's housekeeping at the door.
Always.
Ask me to come clean my room. So I apologize for that. Today I'm in Dallas.
Oh, you're not actually home. You're in Dallas. All right.
Moving targets, but we got to get this in. But where I was going with that is like, we're turning the corner here in our 50s. And I think, this next phase of life can, should, and will be ultimately the best phase of life. I think certainly this period between 50s and 70s, but there are a ton of changes. There's so much going on. We're, past 20 plus years of marriage. Kids are getting older. Health, body, lifestyle, finances, what we define as fun, what we put in our bodies, like so many things are different, and it's how you grow together, and also what we do separately, now in all of these different areas. It's just a really interesting time of life, and I just feel really, honestly, optimistic about it, really hopeful about it, really possible about all of these things. And it's like, how do we play around and figure out what success really looks like right now?
And how do you help a whole lot of people that are maybe struggling with that mindset? Because everything you just said, that curiosity, that embracing of this next time, there's a whole nother set of folks, and I get it, that have fear, that are dreading what's happening, that are looking in the past more than living in the now, or when they look in the future, they don't like what they see. And you're offering just a complete shift in mindset to address, hey guys, like, you're getting older, you're not stopping Father Time, but how do you get the most out of it along the way? So that's kind of my segue into asking about the Midlife Male. I mean, it's a newsletter, it's a book, it's a podcast, it's a coaching group. Give us some insights on that, because you really embraced this to the point where you're literally like the Pied Piper for aging awesome. Not even gracefully, that's not the right word. It's just literally like kicking ass along the way.
Well, thank you. I think there's a little bit of grace in it. And, guys, some grace, some gratitude, and some latitude, in there. But there's also a lot of aggression in it too. Like being proactive and operating with a little bit of chip on your shoulder, and getting after it and saying, you know what, enough of the conformity, the complacency, the redundancy, the belief that our best days are behind us. Like, what does it look like to pour a little rocket fuel on this? And that's really how all this got started, because what you were describing, the negative mindset, the closed mindset, the mediocrity that I call it, the feeling where everything from the outside looking in looks pretty good, but you don't feel that way. Right. Like, that was me for a really, really long time, Sean. And we've talked about this a little bit, but my dad was 47 when he passed away. I tell this story. And my tipping point really was 47. 47, it's my 10-year anniversary with my firm. I'm married. I've got kids. I've got a reserved parking spot in the office building. I've got a multi-million-dollar book of business. I've got all these, and I'm an unhappy guy, if you will. I'm drinking a little too much. I'm letting myself go. I'm hanging with some of the wrong people. I'm just kind of doing all the stuff, like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
There. And I'm feeling very unfulfilled. And I'm chasing whoever the proverbial Joneses are, and I'm doing the salary and title thing, and I got equity in this thing and all that. And you're like, how do I get off of this?
Yeah.
Can I get off of this?
Well,
and how do I do that responsibly, by the way? Because we're balancing that. Yeah,
you had to hit a space where you're like, you finally looked in the mirror, right? Because you made it 47 years, and there's this classic notion ever since you kind of get out of high school and you become an adult and you leave and you start to spread your wings and you're out there slaying all the dragons. Like, more success, fill this bucket, on to the next challenge, like climbing mountains, all the cliches and expressions, and they're all accurate, but you're slaying dragons. But somewhere in your 40s, there's that I don't call it the legacy play, but it's certainly a moment to be like, well, what does this all mean? And what am I leaving behind? And what's the example I'm setting? Like there's a series of questions that start to creep in to the right mindset.
I think it became about really two things: living my legacy, thinking about that, but living my legacy while I'm still here. And to that effect, living my message.
Right.
And I wasn't loving the mess. Like, to go back to it, my message wasn't so great. I wasn't
hanging with the wrong people, drinking a little too much. And that's like, everyone's got their own versions of what that means, but like, it's an indicator, like, and we know a lot more now maybe than you did at 47 even, but you sure as shit knew it wasn't serving you. Like, you weren't like gaining PRs in life by, knocking back tequilas.
If you asked me if I'm living my message and this is the message I wanted to live back then, my answer would have been no. And if you said, hey, are you really living your legacy, or would you leave the legacy you want if you died tomorrow? The answer would have been no.
Right.
So those are not acceptable answers.
No.
And when you peel it back, and like you said, I took a really good, long, hard look in the mirror and I said, what kind of guy do I really want to be? Because I am now one day older than my father was when he passed away. So I can either squander these opportunities, or I can make some changes and live a much happier, healthier, wealthier, longer, stronger life. And again, have more fun, which ultimately became the book. I wanted to just show up better, Sean, as a better husband, as a better father, as a better provider, as a better man.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is, how you do that is, it starts with you. It was like I had to just own everything.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out how I was going to do this, which was where, to answer your question, where Midlife Male came from. It came from me not having the answer to these questions. I knew all the why I wanted these things, but I didn't know the how. So I created kind of a persona, kind of a brand of like, what does the quintessential midlife male kind of look like, act like? What's important? Family, fitness, finance, food, fashion, fun. I'm like, oh, I like all those things. That sounds like success. That became my 6Fs. So who are guys that are really crushing those areas that I could go out and talk to, that I could learn from?
And was it a criteria that they were also in the same age bracket?
Yeah, I wanted them to be relatable, credible, and aspirational.
Okay.
So, like in those areas. And I strive to be that too, going, hey, look, I am vastly unremarkable. If I can do this, anybody can. Like, I genuinely believe that. Can you
there's a vision. Yeah, there's a visual I want to get from folks of like 47-year-old Greg, versus, you're 51 now, right?
51, yeah.
Okay. Like there's a 4-year gap there, and a lot of transformation has taken place. Did you look at 47-year-old self and look in the mirror and say, okay, I got to lose weight, I got to stop drinking, like hard stop things? Or was it a gradual journey of making change? Because remember, you had the parking spot, your partner and owner with equity, and it was an entertainment business.
Insurance, risk management.
I don't know why I thought it was entertainment.
I did a lot of entertainment, and nobody believed that I went into the risk management and insurance business after like 20 years of entertainment. Get into that one.
Fair enough. We'll unpack that one. The journey of your career arc into where you are now, which I think is going to be one of the keys to how effective you are. This is key. But so there were some things you knew. You kind of created your own how. Stop drinking immediately. How was your fitness and like your weight and like your general look in the mirror feel?
It was, so at 47, I was pretty I was pretty healthy. That's the thing. I was pretty healthy. I was pretty successful. I was making pretty good money. I was doing all these things.
Okay.
I was a pretty good drinker. I was a very good drinker, which meant that I was having trouble. So for me, it was more gradual in terms of saying, okay, this is just okay. This is not great. This is not horrible. I had been CrossFitting. I had gotten myself into pretty good shape. I was burning the candle at a lot of different ends, trying to do all these things. And it was too much. It was too much all over the place. So it was really about saying, I'm operating right now suboptimally, because there's really no method to this madness. I'm trying to do all the right things. I'm still doing a bunch of the wrong things. all of this combined is draining me. You know, it's not filling my tank and energizing me. It's depleting me overall. I'm trying to be one thing in the corporate world and everything by day and hang on to this. I'm trying to be another thing in the health world or the home world. There's got to be a way to change this again. So your question is so great because I think that's where a lot of guys get stuck. They get stuck in these extremes, thinking that I got to go from nothing, you know, a sedentary lifestyle, or I'm unhappy in all these areas, or I'm drinking too much, to I got to stop immediately. Or I see a guy who's jacked and is in amazing shape and I can't put the pieces together on how to get there. And I think it's back to stop for a second. Like what I did was I stopped, I took a beat. I really thought about the answers to the questions that I wanted to ask, which ones I didn't have the answers to. And then I said, okay, can I reverse engineer back to what I think success is going to look like? And I started with a couple. One, knowing what's important is what's most important. This is rule number one that I created. Sit back and take some time and figure out what's really important to you. You know, if you say family, fitness, you know, we default to a lot of these, you know, easy words, family and money and this and that. But what does it really mean? Like in terms of what my priorities are and how I want to live, and know that. The second was, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. I had no real plan. I had no real map. I was just doing. Shit was just always on my calendar. A lot of it was reactive, just doing. Where do I really want to go? What do I really, I want to make X amount of dollars. I defined it.
Okay.
I want a credit score of this. I want to have X amount of life insurance. I want to be able to have my kids' colleges funded. I can't afford to quit this job right now and throw all this away. I want to be 175 pounds, around 10% body fat, not be injured, look pretty good naked. What is it going to take? So I found I was overtraining, quite frankly.
Is that a funny thing? When you like you get into a mindset around training that it's got to be more, and all of a sudden you like the epiphanal moment is like, no, you can be absolutely lethal for a 1 hour fitness session, and like you can get an amazing block of work done, and then allow your body the time it needs to recover, because that's gonna be different than maybe when you were in your 30s and 20s, and then actually like attain better results over time. But you're actually putting in the intensity of the effort, and the quality of the effort is there, but it doesn't necessarily mean 2 hour plus gym sessions, like where you're just beating yourself down.
All of this came down to setting standards and having a plan, what I call my midlife action plan, which is an acronym for MAP. That became my roadmap in every one of these areas. And now I had a destination for what I was going to put on my body, what I was going to put in my body, how I was going to go to work, do all these things. And now, like a golden retriever, I could follow, like I'm good like that. Throw the thing and I'll bring it back. Like I had a plan and I could follow it. And that got down to rule number 3, aggregate, curate, and eliminate. So much noise out there. How do I take from all the noise, curate it down to what works for me, and eliminate what doesn't?
Yeah.
And that was a huge breakthrough. You know, sensory overload, buying too many books, listening to too many podcasts, hiring too many people for all kinds of things in there.
You're doing it. You're doing this at this amazing time in our nation's history and like the technology development, where like you're bombarded. Your social media posts, you type in one hashtag on, you know, wellness or fitness, or you know, pick a rabbit hole or any topic. That's it, man. You got a month's worth of content spitting in your face.
Get simple, get clear, get simple, aggregate, curate, eliminate. Then it was 4. Hey, show me your calendar. I'll show you your priorities. My calendar was a mess, man, for years. It was just perpetual motion. And when I followed step 1, step 2, step 3, guess what? Then I started putting things on the calendar. All of a sudden, time opened up. I had plenty of time.
Yeah.
I realized, because I stopped giving it all away to shit that didn't matter and it wasn't important and wasn't moving the needle.
Yeah.
I started making better choices, the actions you take and the choices you make. And now when I look at my calendar, like I'm excited. Like I publish literally photos of my calendar. We did it today with Here I Am and you're on it. Like, and I'm charged up about that.
Literally you look at your calendar and you can do it on any given week. Like who grabbed time on my calendar? Because you let it happen. And you go like, all right, well, guess what? This one thing, like, not the right thing. Don't need to be a part of that. Don't need to be doing that. Like, there's always examples of that. So I
Absolutely.
couldn't agree more on that.
And then the last one we touched on it is just grace, gratitude, and latitude, because we're just way too hard on ourselves all the time. And this is not overnight success. This was a course of, as you know, several years.
Yeah.
Several years of testing and retesting. Several years of implementation. Several years of discipline,
Yeah.
which then created the right kind of consistency. Like, consistency is a misnomer also.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have your consistency, or we should be consistent. And consistent, it's like, fuck that. We're all consistent. Most of us are just consistently making poor choices. The only difference, right? Just start consistently making better choices, and the majority of your life will get better.
Yep.
That was the big difference. I was consistent. I was consistently making really poor choices, and I was stacking those up week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter. And if you would have looked at my life like a business plan, you would have objectively said, you are having underperforming quarter after quarter, and we will never accept this in business. So why are we accepting this in our life?
Fair. And the funny thing is, your business can be growing and moving up and to the right, which kind of takes you to believe that everything you're doing is working out just fine. Because the data.
Positives. Go back, look at the margins, look at the total, look at all the, wait a minute. We're 1 degree off course every week, every month, every quarter. Well, after a year, you're way off course. 1 degree made a big difference. And now you do that 5 years, 10 years in a row. You wake up, you're 47 years old, you're 50 or whatever, and you are way off course. And you have not course correct, because you haven't course corrected along the way. That 1 degree difference has added up to a lot.
Yeah. Are you living your values? Do you know what your values are? I think everyone does, but asking yourself that question and like getting ingrained in that is, those are heavy, heady moments to like really dig in and be like, what do I stand for?
I agree with you. I think it's easy to know, again, back to the why. Like, I know why you want to be a better father. I know why you want to be a successful entrepreneur. I know why you want to make more money, why you want to be this and be that. Now the how. Are you willing to do what it takes? Do you know how? Are you willing to learn how for what you don't know? And then are you willing to actually do it for the time period that it's going to take in order for you to be successful? But I'll say this. The day you start, I say like, today is the day. People are like, when do you start? When do you start? Like, today is the day you start. Like, it's always today. The day that you just start changing that mindset, you swap the first soda for water.
Yeah.
You have one less drink. You go for the walk instead of actually sitting on the couch. The day you start, that's the day the switch flips.
Well, there's a statement about 21 days of performing a new, whatever your new thing is, establishes a habit. And then I think it's like 90 days and then it establishes a lifestyle. Like, if you can do something for 21 days, you've kind of broken a chain of that opportunity to derail it and get yourself off track.
No doubt, but it's got to be sustainable. It's got to be, a longevity. It's got to be something that works for you, which is why I like this testing and retesting. It's like, I don't really care what you do. Maybe you're a CrossFit guy. Maybe you're a yoga person. Maybe you like just being outside doing body weight stuff. It doesn't, whatever you enjoy most, again, find what works for you and stick with it. There are a gazillion ways to be successful. There's really only one way to fail. So your chances are great.
Yeah.
Find things that work. There's so many proven ways to do all these things, to dress well, to make money, to eat well, it's all out there. And quite frankly, it's all free.
Yeah.
What we struggle with is we struggle with the discipline. We struggle with the accountability. We struggle with patience, and then ultimately the consistency. And to your point, we're all going to break the streak. I'm going to have days where I'm not getting out of bed today. I'm not doing what I said I was going to do. Like, I'm going to break the streak. And then you just start over again.
Yeah. Literally pick it right back up. Like, it's funny. So I love this for a lot of reasons. I like the idea, and if there's an advice column in all of this, aside from everything that's already been said, it's, are you willing to learn how? I think that's one of the really, really most important barriers to men, specifically having a stubbornness or a lack of willingness to expose themselves, because are you willing to learn how to make changes? And I remember in my 40s, like incrementally adding in different habits over the course of my morning. It was all about the morning. What do you do when you wake up? How do you stack a couple of wins so that as you go into your day, you just got a couple wins. You've checked off a couple of things. You've done the most remedial things. And I've talked about this before, but like first thing you do when you wake up, meditate, right? Like I learned about meditation 7.5 years ago, and it's been an absolute godsend. We're not talking about long stretches here, just quick. Make your bed. Warm lemon water with a sprinkle of salt in there for that kind of like electrolyte, fusion of purge of, whatever toxins are in your body from the night before digesting, like kind of woo-woo, but hey man, it's not that hard to do. Just a little thing, get your exercise done. Like if you can get it done in the morning and you got to know you're a dad and you got a busy day and you've got afternoon, kids, activities, wife, like whatever your thing is, between 6 and 7 in the morning, chances are those kids are still sleeping or they're not going to be up your butt. You can probably knock off a little bit of something. Figure out those wins. And then they all happen over time. But after a couple of months, all of a sudden, like you're just in the zone and you've got it covered. And like that's something you do religiously. It's funny because this morning I made a point. I was like, well, I'm talking to Greg today. Meditate first thing in the morning, get my warm lemon water into the garage for, a good 40+ minute fitness session, into the ice bath to get that little cool down, and let's go. Let's let it rip. Live it. Because, I'm going to talk to a guy who's going to call me out if I don't.
I think there's a positive. I think one, accountability is a great thing. I think finding people also that are out there, whether you know them personally or you can look, social media gets a bad rap for a lot of things, but I'll tell you, some of the greatest influences positively on my life are people that I don't really know personally, that I see that are out there, living their lives, living their messages, and I can count on them to inspire me and make me better. Now, my circle and network has expanded to know people like yourself right now. California, I'd call you the second I land and be like, okay, where are we going? Like, what are we doing? Let's hang out. And I've got buddies now all across the country. For example, I'm in Dallas right now. And what did I do on Sunday? I text my buddy John and I said, I'm in for one day tomorrow morning. I'm like, first it's like, where do I stay? Where do I stay? Do you want to meet for a workout? Have breakfast after, and get the day started right. And he gets back to me. It's not somebody I know super, super well. It's like, but I feel like I do, because we see what each other are doing. And there's that kind of like-minded inspiration. Like, I know he's doing it. I know he's doing it. He's in Dallas. He's in Houston. Iron sharpens iron. And he texts me. He's like, okay, you stay at the Crescent Court Hotel. They have an amazing gym. They have a sauna. They have a cold plunge. I'll meet you at 7 a.m. And boom, and that was it. And that's what we knocked out, from 7 to 8. We knocked that stuff out, showered, changed, had a quick breakfast. He's at his office by 9. I'm ready to go. And you're like, wow, cool. That's inspiring. And I'll just circle back to your other stuff, morning routines and all of these things. Create again what works for you. Back to the principles and the rules that I created. You may not need a 17-point, morning routine. You may have a short routine. I have a very simple, hydrate, caffeinate, urinate morning routine. Okay, keep it simple.
A little more complex. Okay, fine.
and again, to what degree success looks like. Some of the stuff you do in the mornings, like I put in the afternoons or the evenings. We're all and you mentioned kids. My kids are 20 and 17 right now. My two boys. So one is overseas, right now all summer long. And my other one has his own car, his girlfriend, and his life, and everything's going on. So what I can do at different times now is very different than what I used to do. So don't look at somebody's life that is not relatable again to where you are and think you got to keep up or you got to do that. When my kids were younger and I'm coaching Little League and I'm going again to the office, and I have to be there at a certain time and come home at certain times. Everything was very, very different back then. And you've got to be adaptable. I used to be a 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon workout guy. And then there were periods where it had to be, 5 and 6 a.m. And I really didn't like that. And then there were periods where it just fell off because there was a period of years where it just wasn't really consistent with it because the emphasis was hey, call what it is. The emphasis was building a business, private schools, big house, expensive family, all these other things. And here I was in my, 30s, prime earning years, late 30s, turning the corner on 40. And you can fall into those, you know, over-indexing traps and everything else.
Yeah.
But it really is back to, hey, how do you correct that stuff? How do you adapt? How do you pivot? How do you put a plan in place? And are you actually kind to yourself throughout? But at the same time, accountable, measurable, quantifiable. You call me out, I call you out. Let's not fall for our own bullshit. Let's not be around people that bring us down and we just accept all this stuff. Let's really think about how we want to do it and then go out and do it.
Yeah. And then, yeah, exactly. And get out there and actually do it. And everything you just said, like, it takes a while to build up that mindset if it's not in you naturally, because like a lot of us are sitting in there. A lot of comparisons out there in the world.
And
like,
now I'm looking at guys, I think comparison is the thief of joy. I think there's a difference between comparing yourself and always feeling like you're coming up short.
Yes.
And that everybody else has got it figured out and everybody else has got it right and they've all got it dialed in and, oh, look at how great Bubs is doing and look at what's going on with Greg and there's always something you're not seeing.
Always.
Always.
Trust me, like you want to look behind the curtain and see some of the stuff. You'll be like, oh yeah, well, I guess it's not all it's chopped up to be. I guess that, there are some hardships. Just everything looks great. Social media can curate that amazingly.
Of course.
It also does.
We're trying to do, to your point, what we're trying to do at Midlife Male is really peel this back. Is show the vulnerabilities, show what goes wrong, show the perfectly imperfect situations and scenarios.
Yeah.
And circumstances in life that can defeat you or they can define you. Talk about the arguments with your wife. Talk about the menopause. Talk about, the hair transplants, the Botox, the TRT, the misconceptions, the game changers that aren't really game changers, the conversations we have in our head.
Yeah.
We don't often have out loud. And share those experiences, not to be giving advice, but to share experiences and let guys make decisions and think about things for themselves.
Yeah.
And build their own operating systems and their own plans by seeing this kind of collaborative of insight and access and network and experiences that you're just like, okay, I'm gravitating towards that. These are flawed individuals. These are normal individuals.
Yeah.
Like these are real guys again.
You're removing taboo. You're removing, like, everything you just said, TRT, like, oh, what, testosterone? Like, no, my testosterone's got to be perfect. The other guys are perfect. Like, it's got to be great, right? Or, I have a thinning hairline. What do I want to do about that? Like, that, right here. Like, hey, do I want to live with it? Am I shaving my head? Like, what are the options? And what am I doing about it? One way or the other. Like, what are the actions you're going to take? Because you're either going to live with it. Hey, man, then you live with it. Like, that's fine. Like, that's a solution. Do you need, like, is your sense of vanity or sense of self somewhere where you need to take action? Do you truly have low testosterone and have to have that addressed? Well, that's worth knowing. It's kind of like turn 50 and go to the doc and, get your prostate checked. Like, these are just things you do. And if you don't like what you see, there can be a course of action to address it. And if you have a like-minded community that are already breaking into those semi-taboo subjects that you just don't talk about with your boys, man, what a safe environment to open up and
look,
dig in.
This the middle is messy, but it's also the sweet spot, and that's what I want to keep talking about and kind of reinforce is that it's never not going to be messy. That's real life, but it's how do we sort as much out as we possibly can? How do we make the most out of these experiences? How do we genuinely, live what we feel are our best lives? And that's not rainbows and unicorns and everything looking, perfect and all these things, but that's like, what does a good day look like? A real good day. How do I string as many of those together as possible?
Yeah.
How do I make enough money to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, for as long as I want? Like, what is the real basis in any of this? Does collagen work? MCT, like, of course it does. Like, let me tell you about the one I take, and let me tell you why I'm talking to Sean. We just have all kinds of questions. And here's the other thing, Sean. I'll just end on this. It's all connected and it all matters. I'll write the deepest shit, like about something. I'll be like crying and spilling around, like, oh, this is gonna.
And you do. Like, you absolutely do. I mean, literally, if you follow your Instagram and go into it, the amount of time that you take to dive into subjects, small, big, whatever, is so thorough. Most people look at the photo and scroll on, like it, and move on. But if you stop, like, your captions are gold mines for nuggets of information, and or if nothing else, inspire some folks to like take a pause and like look into some relatable topics.
Well, listen, I appreciate that very much. And where I'm going is like sometimes you'll write some like really deep shit, and you'll be vulnerable and everything else. And you know what also matters? Somebody will want to know, like, well, who makes your shirt? Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. That was 2,200 words about cancer, and bankruptcy and getting off the floor and all this.
Yeah.
And the takeaway is like, oh, where'd you get that shirt? And here's the thing, I've come to realize it all matters, man. Everybody's looking for something different at a different moment.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Like, literally, we're going to get people that are going to respond to when this whole thing gets put together and goes out on Instagram and we start promoting it. People are going to be like, well, is there really a Terry Blacks? That's a great hat, man. Where'd you get that? I am happy to report that because I have great people in my network that live in Austin, Texas, that are ready to text message me back in an instant to close the loop. Terry Black's a real man. Terry Black founded Terry Black's Barbecue and handed over the reins to his sons. So there are two sons that actually run it on the daily, but the company's named after their pops, Terry Black. And my buddy bought one of his smokers from him, so he would kind of relay that whole story behind it. So you can actually buy a custom smoker from the Terry Black crew. They make them to order, like, I guess. So it's a little
Now,
custom niche.
I will tell you, in as part of the Midlife Male lifestyle, if we want to go, I hear that, and that sounds like a lot of work, like smoking meats and doing all that. And I go, the way I view things as the simpleton now, my operating system says, continue to go to Terry's. Go to Austin, because somebody can do it better. Okay, better than all this, and that is working right now. So when I'm there, I will continue to go. I will continue to buy their merch, and it'll keep working.
I like that. All right, so I kind of did this in reverse order, but I would be remiss not to help people understand your trajectory up to 47, and I'm gonna pause right there and say this is relatable to some people that are going to listen to this and not to others. My dad died when he was 50 years old. Your dad died at 47. So in other words, I lost my dad, when I was 22, 23 years old, and you lost your dad at a young age. And when you hit that landmark of when your dad died, there is a look in the mirror moment. I mean, unless you're completely numb to what's going on around you, like, how do you not? And like, that's a shift. Like, it's an opportunity for a shift. I can't say it will be a shift, but it's certainly an opportunity for a shift. Go back in time to like getting out of school, getting in the entertainment space, having an exit, going to the next thing, having an exit, and like you were on a path of like an insatiable appetite for grow, take, like build the empire, slay the dragons before there was that shift. Help people understand that, because I think you having that drive helps paint the picture for how you just realigned it and reapplied it to this new archetype.
Appreciate it. I was on a few paths simultaneously. So I'll tell you, I was born and raised on Long Island in New York, in a very upscale community where there felt like there was nowhere to go but down. He's, looking back on it. And did not experience any adversity at all growing up. It was, my mom, my dad, my two younger brothers, me. And then my dad got sick when I was 15, and they gave him 6 months. And he made it, almost 2 years from cancer and passed away. And I remember I was a freshman at University of Michigan, and I got the call in my dorm room that it was time to go home. And my dad was insistent at the time that I go off to college. I really didn't want to go off to college, and I wanted to stay with him, but he was insistent that I go off to school. And I remember getting the call from my mom that it was time to come home, and I just made it in time. And then the shorter version is, you race to the Detroit airport, in a cab. There's no Ubers back then. There's no,
Right.
I mean, grabbing, not even a jacket. It's, 0 degrees, get to the Detroit airport, fly to New York, get in a cab, go to the hospital. And I made it to be in his room when he passed away. And you're absolutely right. Everything changes from that moment. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be a father figure, to my younger brothers. I wasn't ready to be a man. I wasn't ready to accept any of this responsibility. And the first path I went on was a very reckless path, which was this, live fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And I had nobody really watching over me. I went back to school in Michigan, never really dealt with the loss, the trauma, never really came together even as a family. I just went back, just kind of started living. And there was no family business to go into anymore. I mean, I thought in a perfect world, I would grow up, go to college, come back home, work for my dad, with my dad, which I wanted to do. And that didn't exist. So what sounded sexy? What sounded like living fast? What sounded like being reckless? Well, entertainment did. I'll go make movies, it sounds, cool. And that's where I went after graduation, went back to New York. And I actually got my first job was as Harvey Weinstein's executive assistant at Miramax Films. And I ran his office for 2 years right out of college, 30 years before the Me Too era.
I'm going to go ahead and let the comments fly on that nugget right there. No kidding. 2 years as executive assistant in that office. 2
years, and I have the distinction of effectively, telling him to F off 30 years before the rest of the world, did. But I wanted to make movies, and I wanted to dedicate one to my dad and see his name on screen and say that I did that. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do it. It didn't occur to me that quitting my job at Miramax and telling Harvey that I couldn't still be in the film industry. Like maybe that was narcissism or ego or all this. I never believed that like any one person can stop you from doing anything and I just went off and raised some money and found a script and did it and made a few moderately successful independent films
and rattle them off right now. Just, I mean, this is going to be where folks can be like, how do I find these? And you want to give them a watch.
So if you're on like Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, the one to watch is called Two Ninas. And it's about a guy dating two women with the same name at the same time. And it's a great little independent film written and directed by my good friend Neil Turritz. We're still friends today. And it stars Ron Livingston, who is in Office Space and Swingers.
Yeah.
And Amanda Peet from the whole 9 yards, and Cara Bono, who was most recently on Mad Men. We had this great cast. Fred Norris did a cameo, Fred from the Howard Stern Show, Jill Hennessy from Law & Order did a cameo. And we made this on a shoestring in New York when we were all like in our 20s. And the funny story is like at Miramax, we had bought Swingers. Like Miramax had bought Swingers, which was Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau. And then the third guy.
Classic.
Yeah, third guy was Ron in the credits. So Swingers comes out, Swingers breaks, and it's like, can't get Favreau, can't get Vince Vaughn. Maybe like, and lo and behold, Ron Livingston was cool enough to do it. And then he really broke after Office Space. So the movie kind of got more popular later on as the cast started to break out. And the other one was a hip hop movie called Boricua's Bond, which I'll just tell you, it's kind of unwatchable. So
okay.
It's got Naughty by Nature and the Wu-Tang Clan and Big Punisher, Big Pun before he passed away.
Okay.
Rest in Peace and Method Man and Redman and it had all these and other cameos. The soundtrack was pretty good, and it got picked up, but it was a kind of a interesting production experience on that one. So,
I can only imagine when you just laid out that colorful cast that there was maybe a couple time hacks missed along the way, just maybe.
Little bit, yes. There were some interesting parking lot transactions that took place during that film.
Yeah, there were no Nest cams back then, but let's just say that it got a little spicy in the parking lot.
Yes, it did. But that was a be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
You know, I realized that at a certain that was the lifestyle. It wasn't a lifestyle that I really wanted, and I ended up meeting my wife, my now wife, Kate, at the Sky Bar of the Mondrian Hotel in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, California, when I was out there trying to sell, one of these movies. Because back then, like, you actually had to go screen it and like sell, and I was out there for a while. And I thought I just met a really hot blonde at the bar and it was going to be a good weekend. And if you would have told me, Sean, I'd be married with kids living in Houston, Texas, 20 something years later, would have said bet the under. But we started dating long distance. Ultimately, I'll shorten the version for you. We moved to Houston, where there was not exactly the hotbed of the entertainment industry at all.
How did Houston come out? Like, was that?
Kate's born and raised there. So my wife was born and raised there. We didn't want to live in New York. I was finished with that. It didn't have the greatest memories. As I said, the lifestyle wasn't really where I wanted to be. And this was an opportunity for me to be anonymous, to start over, to live a different kind of life. And that's what I felt I needed. And she had a great infrastructure in Houston, where she was from. And we moved down there. And I had about 6 to 8 months worth of runway.
Okay.
Before the shit really hit the fan. Didn't know anybody. Didn't have an idea of what business I was going to go into or anything.
But you walked from entertainment. I mean, that was it. Like, you kind of you hit it. You made the 2 movies. You sold them off. So you've had that taste of success. You've got some runway in the future. You've got a wife.
Walked. Just said, I'm done. And I'm not going to do this anymore. And here's what got interesting. So we sit down in Houston. I got 6 to 8 months worth of runway. We buy a house we can't afford, like a no job.
Shortening said runway.
Yeah, of course, And I don't know anybody. I don't even know where to even look for a job based on what I've done in the past. And I'm watching Baby Einstein on TV, these DVDs for my young son on my lap. And back then we had picture in picture, and I put ESPN in the corner so I could watch some sports highlights. And I look at the TV, and I'm watching the TV day after day, bored out of my mind, watching these puppets and the sports. And I go, I can do that. I can reverse this. There got to be guys that want to watch sports highlights and those things more than these puppets and the classical music. And I formed a company called Team Baby Entertainment. And I was like, we're going to be the Baby Einstein of the sports world. And that's what we did. I called all the sports leagues and said, I want your footage and I'm going to put it in children's videos. And they're like, take it for free. It even made me do licensing agreements. Yeah. They're like, nobody has had a dumber idea than this guy. And they said, just take it, use all the footage and do this. And then I went to all the team stores and said, send me pom-poms and uniforms and all this stuff. I dressed up all my son's playgroup friends, started filming all this stuff, and started making these sports-themed DVDs to raise the next generation of fan. And I'm selling these things out of the trunk of my car on weekends outside of University of Texas Stadium and A&M and other places. And we got a little article written about us in the LA Times. And I was kind of self-funded and raised a little bit of money, but blowing through it. Everything we sold went right back into PR. And the drill. This is, the entrepreneur lifestyle. You're just chasing your tail, man, on all this. And apparently Michael Eisner, who was the former CEO of Disney, read that article and called me up and wanted to meet. He had bought Baby Einstein when he was at Disney. And
not for his kids, mind you. He bought Baby Einstein, the company.
Einstein, it's a Disney acquisition. Yeah.
For clarity, for everyone out there.
For clarity out there, and wanted to meet. And I think this is why it actually kind of went. I could not meet with him when he wanted to meet because I spent the last 10 grand I had on a 10 by 10 booth at a trade show. And I'm like, I have to go.
Yeah.
So I said, sorry, I can't meet you. Thank you very much. Can we reschedule? Can we do this? And it was like, click. And I'm like, I just blew it. Like, I just blew it. I'll never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And like 2 weeks later, I get a call and they said, we're flying east. Can we stop in Houston? And now I'm like, holy shit. Okay. Like, I said, yeah, absolutely. You can stop in Houston. And now I go home and I tell my wife, I go, Kate, they want to meet. This is worse. They want to meet with me in Houston. I am working, Sean, out of an MRI facility. I have one room in an MRI facility that a friend gave us. It has 2 computers in it. They're both held up on a conference table with like milk crates. And every time they use the MRI machines, the power flips on and off.
This is a little pre-WeWork for anyone out there who's like curious about how to get started with some office space.
Exactly. So I'm like, I'm like, honey, I got to rent like a conference room and I got to like set up for this and everything. And my wife's like, the hell you do? She's like, no, you're going to take that meeting in that office and you're going to show him how you bootstrap this and how you do this, and how you're making this work and that you're scrappy and entrepreneurial and you're going to just get a deli platter. Okay. And you're going to put it down. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And that's what we did. And I listened to her and he shows up at the door, or his assistant shows up at the door the day of the meeting. I open the door and he goes, hi, I'm Andy. And I go, Greg. He's like, am I in the right place? I'm like, you're in the right place. He goes, okay.
Because I don't need an MRI, but I'm here.
Nope. He's like, I'm going to go get Michael now. And I'm convinced he's going to go tell Michael, we're out of here. Get back on the plane. We're gone. This guy, this is ridiculous. But he comes in, sits down, cracks a Dr. Brown's, opens the deli platter, and we talked for like 3 hours. Summer camp, wives, kids, nothing about business. Like maybe 10 minutes about what does that computer do? What does this do?
Sure.
How I did everything. And they land in New York like 3 hours later, and I get a term sheet for a $2 million investment in the company. And that started a 7+ year partnership.
Wow. Now, how often were you interacting with him at the highest level, or at that point, was it more of a handoff to, some of the people around?
At the time we did it, we were the first acquisition he made post-Disney, so a lot.
Oh, wow.
A lot.
Yeah, he wants to make sure this really drives. And it's it's a $2 million investment for Disney, might be pennies, but in the venture capital world or the private equity world, like that's still a substantial tranche in a startup to help them to take those next steps.
For a billionaire at the highest of highs, I mean, this is a small monetary investment, but overall, we really were the puppy that was getting all the petting, all the attention. There really wasn't anything else. There was no Disney engine behind it. It was actually, a couple of people in his private mind, and I was grateful for the mentorship and for the experience. And I made a ton of mistakes and all that. And we took it up for like 7.5 years. We put all these celebrities on the DVDs. I mean, the access that he had, and it was amazing. And then as quickly as it went up, it really came down. Doctors started saying, pediatricians were saying, don't put your kids in front of the, TVs anymore. A lot of the stores that we were doing business with were going away. Circuit City, KB Toys, Toys R Us, Barnes & Noble. DVDs were phasing out, apps. As quickly as we went up, we came down and ultimately really kind of crashed and burned, and I got taken out. And they merged it with the Topps baseball card company, and you get a call one day of like, hey man, good run, but we failed. Or actually, you failed. And here's where we go from here. And I was back again, like at square zero.
Right. That's a tough one. I mean, it's a great ride while it's great, but then the technology shifted, right? Like the world shifted.
But what really is like, you learn like my identity was very much associated with him, in this business and everything else. And how do you reestablish your identity? And what are you going to do next? Now we had 2 children. Now I was back to like, hey, I still have runway, but I don't have a lot of runway again. Everyone thought everything was this. Nobody sees this.
Yeah.
And I had to reinvent myself again and start over. I went from risk taker to risk manager. I got into this business that I never thought I would get into, and invested in this firm and became a shareholder and tried to do what I was supposed to do to cover the expenses and to cover the overhead and build a new business. I didn't have a new multi-million-dollar idea. The economy was shit. The world was in a different place. And it became, it wasn't personally satisfying for me. It was a real hard transition and hard shift. Professionally, it was very successful. Monetarily, it became the most successful thing I'd ever done. I gotta give credit to my partners and the guys that really built up the firm and the opportunity they had when I went over there. And I added to it. But, that was middle age, man. That was a hard reality gut check, in my 40s.
Yeah. Well, on one level, gut check when the ride ends with Team Baby, and then you kind of recalibrate to be really risk averse and risk management insurance, and that ends up carrying it through, and all of a sudden you're living a completely different element of a why, going like, all right, man, we're successful and I'm building this thing and it's worth a lot of money now and we're making good money, but whew, like that high flying, I'm going to make a movie and like parking lot with Method Man to Team Baby Entertainment, and I'm going to be hanging with Michael Eisner and like these heavy players to, all right, let's talk about insurance.
Yeah, I'm just a guy. I'm just a producer, partner in this firm. Now I'm wearing a suit, okay?
Yep.
And like, yeah, look at me now, okay? Those were hard mirrors to look in for a bunch of years.
Yeah. I wonder if that's around the time when you like towards the end of that, when you realize that there's a mirror you want to look in and be fired up about, and that doesn't matter what you do as long as you do it well, and like it really comes from a recalibration.
It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And it was that. It's like, it wasn't the firm, it wasn't my partners, it wasn't the industry, it wasn't the job, it was me. It was me. It was the mindset around all of it. Yeah. And I got to that intersection of like where you try to combine personal passion with professional expertise. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm just looking at this all wrong. I'm just doing this all wrong. I can actually insure anything. So why am I not going after entertainment that I know? Why am I not going after hospitality that I know? Why am I not insuring bubs that I take every day? You know, like all of the, and when I started shifting out, like, you know what? Fuck this, I'm going on offense. Okay? I'm going on offense. Here's what I like. Here's what I'm interested in. Here's what I'm passionate. I'm going to go get after those companies. I'm going to not stay out late drinking and entertaining oil and gas and energy people or whatever. I'm going to get up early and go work out. And I'm going to go insure Rogue, you know, or Bubs, like whatever. Like I went after the shit that I liked, and I'm going to dress that way, and I'm going to talk to these people that way. And you know what? Their premiums are just as big as these other ass clowns over here and all this other stuff that I don't like.
And by the way, if I get 10, you might need 10 of them to stack up to 2 of the other clients, but guess what? You have a lot more fun with those 10.
So here's what happened. It was that shift you talk about. It goes, I'm not going to quit my job. I'm just going to do my job better. I'm going to reframe this.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go after what, and I lost some clients and I lost some money for a while. And I had a lot of butthead moments, you know, with the partners and all that. But here's what also started to happen. When you chase authenticity where authenticity doesn't exist, it's exhausting. When you go after what you like and you enjoy and you're passionate about it, it's energizing.
Yeah.
So those clients started to shift. I started to have a lot more success with the clients that I wanted because we were the same. We were like-minded. We actually like, yeah, I'd love to meet you for a workout in the morning. I'd love to do this. Oh, you know this about our product and this. I was the better choice. The guys that they were working with to manage their risk were not consumers of their products, didn't know about their brands, were not successful entrepreneurs in their life. I actually brought a lot more to the table.
Yeah, there's a relatability to that just you get more excited about. Like, look, I've had 3 different insurance companies since we started Bubs, and we started with one because it was what I knew from actually when I was doing entertainment stuff with Quicksilver and then with DC Shoes, and I only knew one company, and I'm like, hey, I'll go with them. They seem to know. And then we got into trouble. Got a policy that didn't do its job. I'm like, well, I'm paying for this thing that's not doing its job. Go to the next one. Next one, same thing happens, same incident. Supposed to be an expert, they weren't. Now I'm on my 3rd one, and as soon as I met these folks, I was like, oh God, where you been all my life? And they're like, hey, we come from food and beverage. We come from nutrition space. Also, we want to hang. And they're in North County, and they're relatable, and they're fun. I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't care if you're fun necessarily, but that helps. I don't care. I just want to get the job done to a degree. But, man, I'm going to like this a lot more if I like you.
Well, there it is. Back to again. Listen, I want to like you. You have a passion for this, passion for what I do, and you also have an expertise. Okay, well, now you're deadly. Like, that's a really, like, that's a wedge that some other guy, like, you're hard to wedge out. You're hard. In order for me to get hired, somebody else had to get fired. That's just the nature of the business.
Yep. That's the way it goes.
You know, that was energizing to me, to be competitive, to go back in it where I was coming out of this was, look, it's hard being a guy. It's hard, like you start losing your confidence. You start getting kicked in the dick a few times, like all these things. It's hard. And I was lacking some confidence, and I was lacking conviction, and I was lacking the courage, to position myself in a certain way and do it authentically. And I had to rally out of that.
Yeah.
And that took its toll at home. Again, it took its toll in the firm. It took its toll on my health in a lot of areas. But when you start taking back that control and go, okay, now things get interesting. Now you can create some positive momentum. Now you're really, firing on all cylinders. You're doing the things you really enjoy doing within your life. You're surrounding yourself with great people who are doing other good things. You really want to take care of them. You really want to protect them. That also starts with you taking care of yourself, becoming a better expert, becoming more valuable, like all of these things. And now all of a sudden, that does translate. That hits your wallet.
Yeah. Takes a little while. Like you got to J-curve it. You got to dip down and then come back out of it.
Seth Godin wrote a great book. It's called The Dip, if anybody out there wants to read it. And it's a very short book because I'm not a long reader. Okay, but it's called The Dip. And it's when you get into these dips and you have to decide whether you're going to lean into the dip and it's worth it and come out better the other side, or when the right decision sometimes is to stop and go back, not do it. And it's a great book for guys that get into that tipping point, those moments where we really have a decision to make. And I came to that spot where I had to decide, am I going to lean into the dip and come out better the other side? Or am I going to stop this or quit this and you know what? Lose the equity, lose the opportunity, lose the fee, all of this because I just can't do it anymore. Or am I going to lean into it and do it differently and come out better the other side? And what does that look like?
Yeah, it sounds like you did a little of both, right? Like you did come out the other side and then you chose to exit.
So fortunately, I didn't choose to exit. I was like, I wouldn't wish a global pandemic on anyone. But COVID was really one of the better things that happened in my life or to my family. I was doing better, but I was still struggling there. I didn't know where the end was going to be.
Yeah.
In this thing, you get on this journey and it's hard to get off. And really, like for me to get off, it meant we had to have some form of an exit, privately held company with equity in it, like it ain't worth anything until it's worth something, really.
And a set of partners that agree with you.
Yes. So I had two things. One, I had to try to hold on and continue to perform and not ruffle more of the feathers with my partners and get fired and end up with nothing. Okay. Because that would have made 14 years not worth anything, or ride this out for whatever that looks like. And we were not intending to sell, and it was not my decision at all. Like I had no control over that. I was a minority guy. I was a minority partner in there. And I got a call one day and they said, come to the office. And I was like, why am I coming to the office? I thought I was getting fired, Sean. I was getting fired.
You're like, finally did it. Finally broke him down. It finally pissed him off.
I don't have to come to the office anymore. Everything I was fighting against, like now I can stay home. I can work out. I can dress how I want. Everybody's on a level playing field. This is amazing. Talk to my clients. And now I'm getting called into the office. And I literally asked them, I'm like, what are we going to talk about? I want to know before I agree to come in. Do I need an attorney? This is like how, these are the questions that I had. Yeah. And he was like, come to the office. You're going to be happy.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And I got to the office and they shared with me that they had made a deal to sell the company. And we were going to get acquired. And this is what it looked like, and sign here, this NDA, so that they could disclose what was going on. And that's what happened. It fortunately ended up being a relatively quick transaction. And we exited, had to hold, stock and stuff for a couple of years and we all had to sign to stay on for like a year, as part in there. And I made it 6 months before they in fact did to say to me like, hey, you need to get out of here now.
You're the one guy we can get rid of.
Yeah, you don't want to be here and we don't really want you here. So time to go. And they did me a huge favor. It was like, I still, and I think a lot of guys get there too. Like I was on the side of the I knew I needed to leave.
Right.
Hindsight being 2020, I should have done it at the time. We should have negotiated something else. I didn't have the courage. I didn't want to rock the boat. If the deal didn't go through, then they would have known exactly where I stood, and everything
Yep.
on this. So I was like on the side of the bridge, and they did me a favor by pushing me because I didn't have the courage, to jump myself into something else or to walk
Well,
in.
yeah, I mean, you hadn't necessarily formulated what Midlife Male was going to be. And that next step, you were still in the gathering information and like, really rediscovering yourself.
I was doing some writing. I was, it was like a tree falling in the woods. I was just starting on this Midlife Male thing. I had to be really careful about what I could say because I was still part of this company and what I could write. I had documents that were signed. I had to hold, couldn't even, it was an exit, but I couldn't sell monetarily. I couldn't sell stock for certain periods of time. Like there was, if we're really being like transparent on this, it's like, it was a really hard couple of years because you're out in a way, but you're still kind of handcuffed, and it's like,
you're out, but you're not really out. And any feelings that you have about the industry overall or the architecture of the work, you can't really talk about it openly. You just kind of got to ride it out until you're through it all. I mean, it's no.
Yeah. And that was a 3-year period. It was a draining period of like, where's the line, for me in terms of, and fortunately now I'm able to do what I get to do every day. And people say, what do I do for fun? It's like, this is what I do for fun. I talk to you and I work with guys around the country and I write about things that are hopefully, interesting to others that are interesting to me. And I interview people and I get interviewed and I speak, and we're working on new books and experiences and platforms. And the response to it has been incredibly gratifying and awesome. And I feel like there's this untapped movement, this midlife male movement to redefine what middle age looks like and to reframe our mindsets and to live better and to do all this stuff together. And it's really kind of cool, man.
I like it. I like that a lot, man. That's awesome. And I mean, I'm lucky to have you in my life. I mean, obviously we're very similar in age. We've gone through a lot of experiences together. My path was different, at snowboarder into the action sports industry. I've always been able to work in spaces that I've loved. But, like when you're aging out of the action sports space and you're like, all right, man, I'm in my 40s. I don't know if I can still be like the action sports guy. I still love the culture, love the space, wanted to be involved in it on a personal level. But professionally, I was like, hit that wall. Discover Fitness really invigorates. There's an industry, an entire world there. And then, Bubs, which suddenly lights a fire. And I think professionally, everyone has a few key moments in their professional life where they're absolutely lit up. And I mean lit up, like you are on fire with an idea or a concept or a charge. And I remember having that when I worked at DC Shoes when we were launching the snowboard program. And like, I was all in. Like, what did I do for fun? I did that job. And I loved every minute of it. And we were changing snowboarding. We were affecting the sport in a really positive way that I could really get behind. And Bubs, like right now, like doing things and positively changing lives, you're doing that. Like you're living your why, and it's freaking great to see. And maybe the movies component and being able to celebrate your dad could be one of those moments, but right now it's got to be another one.
Look, all of this gets, all of these experiences, I wouldn't change any of them. I mean, look, would I trade everything to have my dad back? Of course I would.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, all of the situations and circumstances and experiences that I've had have helped me get here. They all happen for a reason. And just like, the admiration that I have and the inspiration that I get from you, it's like you found your purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, even through tragedy, and losing a friend, but being able to dedicate your life and your purpose to creating something that means something, that has value personally and professionally, and give back. We're lucky if we get that once in our life.
Yeah.
There's so much noise around, even quitting your job and following your passion and all these other, and the other truth is like, most people don't even know what their passion is, really. And if they know what their passion is, sometimes their passion isn't gonna, pay for what for the life that they want or that they need to live, especially in middle age. So I just think there's also something interesting about that navigational process of thinking about how what that is. Does your career and job, can it fund your passions? Can you
Yeah.
make your passion, even finding out what your passion may be by trying different things? Like we talked about curiosity before, that it's never too late and you're never too old to try and to test and to retest, because you don't know when it's just going to be the thing, or it's going to be this thing
Yeah.
that got you to this thing that led you to this thing. And who cares if you're 50 or 60, or who cares, like, if you have to stay in the career or the job that you're in longer, but change the way you see it. Do the job better so that it funds and allows you to do the other things that you want to do. Like, so much of this is up here in our head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we create situations that are not good for ourselves. We see things negatively and instead of like looking at it as a positive. Hey, I wrote for years that this career pays me a lot of money to write a newsletter and host a podcast. Rather than, I can't wait to get out of this career so I can write a newsletter and host a podcast and make zero, by the way. And
Bingo.
if you think you're unhappy, okay, like at a job that's paying you really well and you're unhappy, wait till you go to a job that you love that pays you zero.
Right.
Now, let me tell you, you're going to be even more unhappy. That thing that you love, you're not going to love it that long. When the bills are stacking up and the stress and the anxiety and everything else. So there is a responsible aspect, all of this, that comes into play, that comes into this design of maximizing midlife, that comes into this, I say mediocrity happens by default, maximization happens by design. Like, you got to be a realist about this. Doesn't mean to not have big dreams, doesn't mean to not have great goals, doesn't mean to not set high standards, but we've got to be realistic about what our plan really is, what we do, how we do it, why we do it, all of those things.
Yeah. Gold, absolute gold. And it's funny because, like, not funny, but it's awesome. My brother-in-law, Tad, he's like the living example of someone going through a lot of this right now. And I love it because I love the exploration of finding out like what you're really in. And like, he doesn't love the industry that he's in. But I always talk to him about like, well, is it a tool that allows you to go and do the things you love to do? Like, if you're not ready to make that jump, can you put it in the right area so that you can kind of make that job your bitch and like just own it, so that when you're not in it, you've used that fuel to get into all the other things. And so he hits me up the other day and he goes, hey, so I'm longboarding right now. Dude just turned 50 and, or he's about to turn 50, 49, whatever. Point is, he's grabbing a skateboard at 49 and he's rolling around. He's talking to me about how to stop. Like, how do you power slide? I'm like, yeah, you gotta start power sliding, man. Like, leather gloves, power slide, hands down. Like, I'm talking about this like I'm a teenager all over again. Then I find myself rifling through YouTube videos on how to execute a good power slide to help him do this. I'm like, dude, the fact that you're picking up a skateboard after 30 some odd years and getting back into something that is infusing you with joy is absolutely awesome. You're making that job your bitch so you can go out and grab your skateboard and just like create a level of fun and enjoyment, which is one of the buckets.
It's a huge point. Say, look, you may not be the CEO of your company or your firm, but you are the CEO of your own life. And that's exactly what a lot of the work that I'm fortunate enough to get to do with guys is right now. It's about that reframing, that repositioning, and saying, hey, guess what? Maybe you don't have to be the first one in and the last one to leave. Maybe, but here are the things you need to do. You do need to max out your vacation days. You do need to, take advantage of every opportunity the company is giving you. You do need to absolutely perform and not shirk your responsibilities, but you need to cultivate a mindset and a lifestyle and a way of operating around this that allows you to get on that longboard.
Yep.
That still gets you to the gym.
You got it.
That gets you to your kids' games 80% of the time. And you got to start seeing what you do as a privilege, that provides you with the opportunity to do these other things.
Amen.
And then if you want to, again, transition out, let's be realistic. Let's map that out. Let's reverse engineer back to how this is going to happen. Give you a quick example. It's like I got a buddy. He's a very successful, like pharmaceutical rep. He doesn't love particularly what he does. He's been doing it a long time. He's got Northeast territories. It's a busy city. He's gone to go and everything. All of that, makes really great money. Has 3 kids. Has an apartment in the city and has a house in the Hamptons. And he's got a workshop in this garage in the Hamptons, all wood. You know, he's a craftsman. You know, he's become a craftsman. It's amazing. All he wanted to do was quit his job and like go become a woodworking, like become a craftsman. And it's like, listen, buddy, look around. Okay? Look around. This ain't gonna, like, this all goes away if you become a craftsman. If you decide tomorrow to become a craftsman full time, all of this goes away. Right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about, you got to make sure you also go into work every day with a big smile on your face. Do not be the outlier. Do not rock the boat. Do not let your boss, you're not bigger than the system.
Yeah.
Do not let them see you being miserable and complain and all this. No. We can make a plan, but like, it's like, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. It's like, by the way, I work with the guys. I don't work with the company. I work with the individual guy.
Yep.
I work a lot with companies to work with them about how you should help your sales teams, or how you actually make cultures that mean something, or what are we really talking about when we're not talking to you?
Yeah, right.
On here, because here's what you're not seeing, guys, because I sat in that seat in those sales meetings. You know, us versus them, who's unhappy. Like now we can talk about that, but I work on the side of the guy, the advocate for the guy, to design the life that's worth living for him.
Right.
And how he does that within the pieces that he has. So it's like, you may be woodworking full time in 5 years. Okay. But you might be unemployed with 2 homes on the market in 2 years. Like if you quit.
Yeah. Go for the 5-year stretch. And then you might actually find you don't love what you do, but you're getting enough time doing the things that you love to do to make it all work. And how do you create that flow?
You may learn to love it a lot more because you appreciate it a lot more, and because you're operating differently in it. Again, how you eat, how you train, when you do your woodworking, how you approach the business. Maybe you're, again, over-indexing, too many hours, too many this. Maybe you've been the number one guy for 5 years, and that's a lot of... And what you realized is, hey, I'm not going to be number 10, okay? But I don't need to be 1 or 2, you know, for 20 years in a row. Now I'm like 50 or whatever. I'm okay. Like I can be 3 or 4. You know, success looks a little different, you know, in there. But I still want to go on the sales trip every year. I need to make sure I'm always in the top, you know, like all of those things. You know, there's always a way to look at it.
Totally agree. It's actually, I mean, for anyone listening to that who's not at that, like, oh, I own my business. Like that's very few folks are in that position. How do you get the most out of it to allow those other buckets to remain full? Like how do you leverage that for family, for finance, for food, fashion, fun, fitness? I would argue faith is somewhere floating around on the outside of there, although that can be a hot topic for folks. But you know, like how do you contribute to those buckets? And it's like, if you can really get your head in the game for what you do and bring your A game and bring like that, just put it in the right space.
Look,
man, it feeds so many other areas of your life. So it's just, it's a powerful tool set. I love that.
I love faith. I mean, faith comes up all the time, but just like I'll say about hope, like hope is not a strategy. You know, faith alone is not a strategy. Have it, believe in it. Yes. But also hope, faith, luck. I genuinely believe all of those things get better when we're also doing the work, working our plan, all of those things. We create a reason for those things to go our way by the actions, again, that we take. So I just wouldn't hang necessarily my hat on hope or just like, hey, pure faith in there. It's like, well, you got to show me some actions. Be a faithful person. Absolutely love it. Be hopeful, be optimistic, be all of these things. Pray whatever you're into. Absolutely. But we also got to put it down into some measurable quantifiables, and here's how we're going to improve and increase our odds. And the last thing I'll say is, you're right. The vast majority of people are not entrepreneurs, male, female, middle-aged, or otherwise. And there's absolutely nothing wrong for working for companies and working for them your entire lives and your entire careers. Find the right ones also. Figure out how you work with those companies, navigate them. There's never been a greater time, I think, in the world than right now.
Yeah.
To move also. Like, there are companies are desperate for incredibly capable individuals. and they're incredibly desperate. Also, they are looking for capable, experienced, middle-aged guys. Really, quite frankly, because we know how to work. We want to work. Okay, all of these, set aside the enabling and the entitling and a lot of the other shit that's going on. It's like, bring me a motivated, inspired, middle-aged guy who knew where he was unhappy, and now I'm putting him in a place where he can be happy. Man, that guy is going to deliver for you.
Lethal. You will be lethal.
Yes, that guy's absolutely going to deliver for you. So the lateral move, which is really an upward move, you could be moving for the same money, but if your quality of life is tenfold, like these things are huge. Don't ignore those opportunities and possibilities.
Perfect. I love that. And I mean, absolutely. I mean, I know when I'm looking for folks, like I just want the right qualities of someone who kind of knows where they are, and they come in and they're fired up and they're ready to go. And that's no different than any industry. Like, are you willing to put
we could do this all day. I could always talk to you all day, but there's like so much meat on that bone too. It's like, go ask, go ask for your gym membership, maybe to be paid for, or you're trying to get a little healthier. You're trying to do things like, go talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Let's put a wellness program together, or let's do things that change, again, the attitude.
Yeah, the dynamic. I mean, you know how much energy you bring to the table when you're feeling good? Like, you bring great energy, and that's infectious, and people feed off of that. No one wants to come into the Eeyore and be miserable. You want to come in and feel fired up on that. All right, so I'm gonna break and segue into the very fun and kind of closing part of the show here, called rapid fire questions.
Ooh, okay.
Quick answers. Don't overthink it. But I got about 6 of these here, and I'm gonna start firing them off. So, first question, Greg, what was your very first job?
The Handbag Gallery in Great Neck, Long Island. I sold handbags, purses.
I didn't see that coming. Next, as a resident of Texas, I love asking this question to you. Rank these from best to worst: salsa, queso, or guacamole?
Best to worst: guacamole, salsa, then queso. I'm not really a dairy guy.
No, I can't hold that against you. Do you play any instruments, and if yes, which ones?
I play guitar.
All right.
And we have a band named Wheelhouse, and we play a couple of times a year. And we got back into this also in our mid-40s.
I love that. I'm waiting for the YouTube video / Insta post of one of your songs ripping through. So I'm just going to stand by and wait. You just let me know.
I'll send you a link and we'll put something up. It's been a minute, but yeah.
All right. I like that. Next up, what is your stripper name? Now, this is a combination of your first pet's name and the name of the street that you grew up on. For example, my stripper name is Bender Copley. My dog's name is Bender, and I grew up on Copley Street.
Okay. My stripper name would be Alex Orchard.
Alex Orchard. Okay. All right.
Alex was my first dog. Rest in peace. And Orchard Lane was the street I grew up on.
There we go. Alex Orchard it is. A single mantra or piece of advice given to you that stuck with you over the years. It's kind of like this always been anchored with you.
Harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, man. I like that. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep.
That rings so true after this conversation that it absolutely sinks in. And last question on rapid fire. The favorite place you have ever visited?
I'm going back a ways. Okay. First thing that pops into my mind, most meaningful thing, 1980 Nassau Coliseum with my dad. New York Islanders win their very first Stanley Cup. Bobby Nystrom, backhanded overtime goal past Pele Lindbergh.
Okay.
Absolute coolest experience of my life.
I was waiting for you to say Nassau, the Bahamas, but that's pretty darn cool. Yep, I'm tracking on that one. That's a solid one.
And I am still looking to this day I want a photograph of that moment autographed by Bobby Nystrom. I want that for my house, and I haven't gotten it yet, but I will.
That's pretty epic. I remember meeting Bobby Orr, another Bobby, from the Boston Bruins, because my dad did some business around him in like the late 70s and early 80s. I remember just being like 6 years old, meeting Bobby Orr and just knowing that he's the guy from the poster, fully outstretched, like with a hockey stick out in his hand. And I was like, that's the guy. And so I hear you. I got luckier. I get that photo. It's all over the internet. Yours a little bit tricky, but we're gonna help you find that.
We got. I'm sure it's out there. And it's like the memory is like so embedded in my head, even though I was 8, like almost 9 years old or something at the time, that it's almost like I haven't had to go find the actual photo because it's like here in my head. It's always been there. So yeah, we'll get it though.
I'm tracking. All right, man. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining us today. And if people want to learn more about you and where to find you and the things that you're up to, where do they go looking?
Thank you. Go to midlifemale.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter, the podcast, get everything there. We're real close to doing a new rebrand, relaunch. So super, super excited about all the content that's going up there, articles, writers, podcast episodes, everything. Your home for all things Midlife Male. And on Instagram, it's at Greg Scheinman. Not hard to find at all.
No, that's awesome. And we'll put all that, of course, in the show notes. And to everyone out there, thank you for listening, for watching. You can find the Cult of Recreationalism on all podcasting services. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube or social media at Bubs Naturals. Just look us up. You'll find us. And, of course, leave a thumbs up if you like, a 5-star, whatever platform you're on. Hey, leave a 1-star. If we suck, let us know we suck. We'll make it better. But every positive review does help. Greg, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us.